Hi, I'm NIURKA, and I'm a transformational leader, creator, and author of the book Supreme Influence. So today, I'm going to give you 3 secrets to help you communicate with greater purpose, poise, and power. 3 secrets to help you communicate more effectively and authentically than ever before. These 3 secrets will help you create your life by design through the power of the language you use. Language. Language creates material reality. Language is the force of information and energy that can turn a nothing into a something. And the whole world is alive with language. So let's talk about you and your words, because I'm curious. When you open your mouth to speak, how many possibilities are there of what you could say? Infinite, right? There's limitless ways to describe the human experience. Well, the words that you choose, either consciously or subconsciously, do 2 things. Number 1, they shape your experience of reality. And number 2, they reveal the dominating thoughts of your mind to a discerning listener. Here, I'll ask it another way. Let's say that you had a tape recorder and I gave it to you and you walked around with it for a week and it recorded every single thing you said. Or better yet, let's say we could take that tape recorder and we can put it in your brain and it recorded every thought, every word. And then at the end of the week, you and I sit down in this space of unconditional love and total non-judgment, and we press play. What is revealed? Do you catch yourself championing your vision? Do you catch yourself being your biggest supporter, or do you catch yourself talking about what isn't happening, bringing up doubts or fears, or even talking about yourself unkindly, or even other people unkindly? What if you knew, and this brings me to our first secret, that you create as you speak? That's secret number 1. You create as you speak. You can even say it out loud. I create as I speak. That your word has that much power. That when you speak, you are literally speaking into existence, and that every cell in your body aligns with what you declare. And a phenomenal example of this creative power that our word has is illustrated in the story of the book of Genesis. Now, as the story goes, in the book of Genesis, I don't know if you realize this, but the word God was not used in the original transliteration. The word that was used in this particular story was Elohim. And Elohim most closely translates into powers that were in the act of creation. And as the story goes, the Elohim looks out onto the void, or what the Greeks call chaos, and speaks light into existence. Now, you might have heard that the words that were spoken was, "Let there be light." But when you look at the original transliteration, do you know that the word that was spoken was "be light"? In other words, "be light" was spoken in an imperative mood, with the authority of the absolute. The Elohim did not say like, "Hey, can I please get a little bit of light around here?" It was spoken with that authority, and that what came back, almost like an echo, was "light be." And that corresponds to the most recent discoveries in quantum physics, which are confirming that what we put out is what returns unto us, that it's in the giving that we receive. So you and I are made in the image and likeness of the Elohim. The creative powers of the universe flow in as and through us. So if we are made in the image and likeness of Elohim, then why is it that so many people struggle? Why is it that so many people feel trapped or limited? It's because we forget. We forget our essential nature. We forget our divine inheritance. And this is the archetypal hero's journey that has been told. The story has been told again and again and again from the beginning of mankind's story. That hero's journey, I'll give you one great example. Did you see the movie Kung Fu Panda? I love Kung Fu Panda. It's another cartoon story about the hero's journey. Here's this panda who knows inside that he is the dragon warrior, but nobody else sees it. All they see is he's a tubby panda that works at his dad's noodle shop. But he knows inside, this is who I am. This is what I'm destined to do. And he goes through all these trials and tribulations, and people make fun of him and don't see the truth about him until he meets a teacher, a real teacher that sees the truth about him. And in that sacred reflection, he remembers and steps into the embodiment of his infinite potential. So this is the story of Odysseus. This is the story of Ulysses. This is the story of Luke Skywalker. It's the story of Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita. And it's the story of our lives. It's the journey of awakening to who we really are and why we're here. Because we live in this universe of infinite possibility that responds to the power of our thought. And enlightened masters have been saying this for centuries, but it's very exciting that science is now confirming this, that we do in fact live in a universe of infinite possibilities. Right now, there's infinite possibilities of what you can experience or create in your life, with your business, with your projects, with your family, with your loved ones. There's infinite possibilities, which means everything that you can desire is available. And so is its opposite. But here's the thing, your neurology, your body, can't take in infinite possibilities. It's too much information. It would be like trying to download the whole internet. So what we do all day long, we all do it, is three things. We delete, we distort, and we generalize reality. And we pick up a tiny little bit of what's going on. And that tiny little bit that we pick up is what harmonizes with our deepest beliefs, our values, our identity, our sense of self, and our programming. Now, do you know we've been programmed? I mean, most psychologists agree that by the time a child is 8 years old, they've received over 25,000 hours of linguistic programming. Words have been downloaded into our minds, imprinting our minds with ideas about who we are, ideas about money, ideas about marriage, ideas about God, ideas about what is or is impossible, even ideas about who you are and what you're really capable of. And these ideas run in our minds like muffled tape loops, and they fuel your behavior and they drive your life until you wake up and you go, wait a minute. I have the power to choose my life experience. I have freedom to choose and power to create. So when you understand this, you get that in a universe of infinite possibilities, you do not describe what you see, but rather you see what you describe. In other words, you're not looking out at your life or at your relationship or at your business or at your bank account and describing what's actually happening. No, what's going on is that what's showing up in your life is what's reflecting back to you. It's mirroring back to you the dominating thoughts of your mind, the vibration that you're emanating, the words that you're speaking. It's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. You create as you speak, and you speak in many ways, not just with your words. You speak with your body language, you speak with your tonality, you speak with your intention, and you speak to yourself with the picture, sounds, and feelings inside your own mind. And what happens is that when you elevate this communication, you elevate your entire experience of reality. And what you perceive shows up differently based on the state and the vibration you're in. Okay? So I want you to really think about the last week of your life. Think about the states that you were in, because your mental and emotional state determines what you perceive. So here you are in this universe of infinite possibilities like we talked about. Your neurology can't take it in, so you delete, distort, and generalize. You pick up a tiny little bit that matches with this programming. So how do you elevate what you pick up? In other words, how do you create the conditions that allow you to attract and call forth the highest within you and the highest within your environment? How do you do that? One way is through your state of mind, your state of being. The quality of your life will mirror the quality of the mental and emotional states that you frequent. So I want you to think about the last week of your life. Were you experiencing empowering states, or were you experiencing some disempowering states? We're experiencing empowering states like enthusiasm, inspiration, love, gratitude. Or are we experiencing disempowering states like stress or frustration or overwhelm or anxiety? Or was the pendulum swinging? What if I told you that I can give you a recipe or a formula to experience any state at will, and it's legal? There's 4 ingredients to call forth and embody an empowered state of mind. One of them we've already been talking about. It's your language. And by the way, this is the second secret. It's the 4 ingredients to call forth and embody empowering mental states at will. So I just said the first was language. The second is your physiology or your body language. Motion creates emotion. How you move influences how you feel. I mean, if I was sitting here doing this with you and I was kind of like this, you'd probably get a different vibration from me. It's the same thing. Your body communicates a message to your brain. So when you sit in a way with your heart open, nice and elongated, matter of fact, you could do this with me wherever you are right now. You could sit nice and high, open up your heart center, and just be mindful of your breath. Okay? That activates an empowered state. You start seeing things different than if you're hunched over. I mean, think about it. If I said to you, there's a depressed person behind some door over here, describe them for me. Could you? Where are their shoulders? Up or down? Down. Where's their breathing? Deep or shallow? Shallow. Where's their eye contact? Direct or down? Down. Do you know that if you sat next to a depressed person and you mirrored and matched their physiology to a T, that it would be a short period of time before you duplicated that exact emotional state? Okay. So the second ingredient is your physiology. The third is your focus, because whatever you focus on expands. And the fourth is your beliefs. What do you believe? What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about what's possible? These 4 ingredients come together to produce a state of mind. Now, let's say that you're in a funky state. You're in a state where you're like, I got to shift something because you know that you're maybe stressed out or you're anxious or you're not feeling in alignment. What's the fastest way to shift your state? First, change your body language. Sit up straight, put your shoulders back, inhale a conscious breath, and look up. When you look up, you access different parts of your brain than when you look down. When you look up, you start accessing the visions of what's possible. When you look down, you're going to access more of the feeling state, okay? So the fastest way to shift, one is you shift your body. The second, shift the questions that you ask yourself. And that's bringing me to our third secret, okay? The third secret is questions are the answer. But before we get into how to create empowering questions that call forth the highest within you, let me share with you something very important about language. Every word you speak or every statement that you make or every question that you ask contains within its structure a presupposition. Presuppositions are embedded assumptions in language that trigger your brain to find things that are in alignment with what you declare. I'll give you an example. Back in 2008, I was invited to be the guest speaker at a luxury real estate convention. And as you know, in 2008, there was a lot of shifts that were happening and the market was in the pits and I was the keynote speaker. And right before I got on stage, one man came up to me and he had a moment with me. He could have asked me anything. Remember I said earlier, when you open your mouth to speak, how many possibilities are there of what could come out? I mean, it's limitless possibilities. Here's what he asked me. He said, I know you're our speaker today, and I just want to make sure and see if you can you talk about how we can survive this market? That was his question. Think about that. He could have asked me anything. He could have opened a door of opportunity. But what were the presuppositions or the embedded assumptions in that question? How can I survive presupposed survival in this market? So if you're talking about how can I survive, you're actually activating the energy of survival because you are the one speaking it into existence. What if the same man would have asked a different question? I mean, here's a very powerful question that I asked over the years that elevated every area of my life. How can I be even more aware of the unlimited opportunities that surround me in my life right now? I mean, one question can change your life because the answer is within the question. I'll give you an interesting example. A couple years ago, my office received a phone call from a man who wanted me to be the keynote speaker at his yearly convention for his company. And he was calling and he said, "NIURKA changed my life." And my office manager said, "Well, where'd you meet her?" He says, "I haven't met her. I've been listening to her tapes." And he said, "The interesting thing about it is that this multimedia set that she created, it was my Faith and Gratitude multimedia set, it sat on his desk as a paperweight for years. And then one day he had to start commuting. So he said, well, I might as well listen to it. And he started listening to these CDs, and there was one in there. He said, oh my gosh, that touched me so deep. The power of questions. He said, I had no idea how I was asking myself such poor questions all the time. He said, I was walking around asking myself things like, gosh, why are people so stupid? Why is it so hard to find good quality people on my team? And why is it so hard to lose weight? And he said, I was attracting the exact same answer of those questions that I was asking. He said, I started listening to that CD, and all of a sudden I started asking myself different questions. I started saying, what am I most grateful for right now? Or who do I know that can support me with this? Or how can I tune in to what's most important to me in this moment so I can be in alignment with that? Or how can I be even more present to this person that I love so I can really have this deeper connection? So I'm going to share with you the same formula that he learned in that audio tape so that you can create your own empowering question, okay? First is that when you write down an empowering question, remember, these are questions that you're going to formulate on purpose by design. First, it's recognizing that every question presupposes the existence of something. So we're going to want to consciously select presuppositions that bring us and draw us in the direction that we're inspired to go. So you want your question to be stated in the affirmative. So, for example, years ago, I did this training at a corporation. It was for Mercedes-Benz, and I taught this process of asking empowering questions. And there was one man in my training class who was raising his hand. He was like, pick me, and we're going around the room and sharing our questions. And this man's question was, how can I not be such a procrastinator? Now, his intentions were great, and obviously procrastination was something that was showing up for him in the past, but that's not the best question because it keeps the energy of procrastination active in your field. So a better question would be, how can I accomplish this with ease and grace and with velocity? Or how can I get this done quickly right now and have fun doing it? So by just shifting the question to move towards what you desire rather than away from what you don't want, the entire your ability to attract shifts, because we live in an attraction-based universe, and whatever you put out is what's going to come back unto you. I love what Wayne Dyer says. He says you can never get enough of what you don't want. So if you're talking about what isn't happening or what you wish you weren't the procrastinator, then that's what's active in the field. Okay, so the first is you make sure that your question is stated in the affirmative. Second is really tune in to how you're going to begin your question. Okay? Questions that start with how are going to give you a process. Questions that start with what are going to give you content. Questions that start with why are going to give you a sense of purpose or a sense of problem. And questions that start with who are going to give you support and resources. So, and this is really important to get those distinctions. I mean, sometimes somebody comes up to me and they say to me, NIURKA, how do I meditate? And they don't really understand what meditation is. So we want to be able to understand what something is and then how we can practice that. So as you write down your own empowering question, in the beginning, I'm going to invite you to use the word what, how, or who. And you could use the word why as long as you state it in the affirmative. Why am I inspired to do this? But again, you could get a lot of philosophical answers with why, whereas what is going to get you more of this is what we're focused on, and how is going to get you more of a process. Okay. So That's the second part. Begin your question with how, what, or whom. And then the third is when you write your empowering question, you want to write it in such a way where it creates momentum. So for example, I could ask the question, how can I be focused? Or I can say, how can I be even more focused right now? So just those 2 points of saying even more does what? It creates a sense of forward movement, a sense of momentum. And obviously right now brings it into the present moment. So I'm going to inspire you right now, wherever you are, to maybe pause this video or take out a piece of paper and write down your empowering question. What is that for you? So there are 3 secrets to communicate with greater purpose, poise, and power than ever before. Number 1, you create as you speak. Number 2, your formula with your 4 ingredients to call forth and embody empowering mental and emotional states at will. And number 3, questions are the answer. So I'm going to give you a bonus secret. Secret number 4. Whatever you speak after the words I am, you will attract, you will create, and you will become. So be very mindful of what you speak after these words, because whatever you speak will come back and it will find you. It'll become your reality. So in closing, I would like to share with you a story about the early days of my career and how language played a major role in my growth and in my development. So I started my company in the year 2000. Prior to starting my company, I traveled the country for 5 years as the #1 trainer for Tony Robbins. And prior to that, I worked with Brian Tracy. Now, back when I worked with Brian Tracy, they had a nickname for me. They used to call me Kid because I was young and inexperienced. And my job back then was to go into local corporations and deliver a 45-minute presentation and then inspire people to go to the upcoming seminar. But because I was so young and inexperienced, I would get all the non-qualified appointments in very far directions with people that barely spoke English. And just so you know, English is not my first language. So what happened was I started seeing myself producing results in my mind. I started seeing myself meeting with the most powerful leaders in New York City, which is where I was at the time. And the vision in my mind was big and bright and crisp and clear, and it was fully panoramic, and I was in it, and it was amplified to the point where there was no distinction between that vision and what was happening in external reality. And then one day, opportunity called on my brick-sized cell phone. Do you remember those? And it was my manager, and he said to me, "NIURKA, how quickly can you get to Wall Street?" Pretty quickly, I said, as I pulled out my big Thomas Guide map. Do you remember those before GPS? And I said, "Why? What's going on?" He said, "We have a meeting that's scheduled on Wall Street. It's been confirmed for weeks. They're expecting our top trainer. He had an emergency. He's on his way to the airport. All the other trainers are in meetings. You're our last hope. This is your chance, kid. Are you ready?" I remember in that moment, my heart started beating. I started sweating. I inhaled a deep breath in and I said, "I'm ready." And he gave me the details and we hung up the phone. And I looked in the mirror and I had this curly hair back then and this one velvet jacket that I bought at a thrift store that I used to recycle with my outfits. And I looked in the mirror and I said to myself, with faith the size of a mustard seed, I will move mountains. And I drove to the underground and I took the underground into Wall Street. I remember running up the stairs on my way to this meeting. I had to walk around that big charging bull in Wall Street. If you've been to Wall Street, you know what I'm talking about. And I got to the building and I took the elevator up to the penthouse. A little bit sweaty, that elevator door opened. And I remember it revealed this huge mahogany desk and this woman behind the desk. And I walked right up to her and I said, "Hi. My name's NIURKA, and I'm the trainer, and I'm here to see Fred Warren." And she looked at me beneath her glasses, and she said, "Do you have an appointment?" I said, "Yes, I'm the trainer scheduled to meet with him and his team." And she looked at me, and she goes, "Really? Have a seat." So I went and had a seat, and I could see this big sign up by the training room talking about the top trainer coming in to do the presentation. And this receptionist picked up the phone, and she says, "Fred, Shirley Temple's here to see you." I'm like, oh, really? So out walks Fred, this distinguished man in a blue pinstripe suit and he's looking over my shoulder for the trainer. So I walked right up to him and I said, "Hi, Fred, I'm NIURKA." And he looked at me and he said, "Are you gonna do this by yourself?" So I thought I'd create a little humor, so I picked up my briefcase and I pointed at it and I said, "I got a little green man in here who helps me out in case I get in trouble." He was not amused. He looked at me and he said, "Listen, kid, 20 minutes max." And he started walking out into the room and I walked behind him and I assured him that I would do my best presentation. And he looked at me and he said, 20 minutes max. And I went into that room and I poured my heart and soul into a 20-minute presentation that I had created by myself. And at the end, I asked the opening question. I said, "Who wants to go to the seminar?" And only one hand went up, mine. So I paused and I centered myself and I told a story and I said, "Who wants to go?" No hands. The tension was building and I could feel it. And in that moment, I paused. I inhaled a breath. I centered myself. I put my hand on my heart and I went to share one more story. And in that moment, a miracle happened. Fred looked at me and he looked at his team and he looked at me and he looked at them and he pointed at me. And he said to them, he said, "Do you all see this kid?" He said, "This kid's got balls to come in here and talk to you like this. And if this seminar can get this kid to do this, I'm going. And I think every single one of you needs to go. And if you go, I'll pay for half." And it was a huge success that day. And when Fred and I walked out the door, we were walking side by side. And he looked at me and he said, "You know, I have a kid that's about your age. And all she does is ask me for money. So I can appreciate what you're doing." And I pounced on the opportunity. I said, "Can you put that on letterhead for me?" And he said, "I'll do better than that." And he picked up the phone and he called every other branch manager in his company and gave me a glowing recommendation. He wrote me this beautiful letter on his letterhead. And the very next morning, he walked me right into the New York Stock Exchange. And he introduced me to all the major players. And that was the beginning of my career. So in life, even if you don't know which way to go, when you step forward, centered in faith, and you speak that into existence, "I will move this mountain," you will be given firm ground to walk on, or you will be given wings to fly. So it has been a joy and a blessing to be with you, and I'm inspired to support you in creating your most magnificent life and to share these secrets with you. And I'm looking forward to being in your presence soon.